All right. Afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing? Gonna be doing a bit of a recap of today's price action. I've heard that some people were not a fan of today's price action. Other people were. Some people called it search and destroy conditions. Some people just called it shady price action. Um, I, on the other hand, overslept and kind of glad that I did because I feel like it was definitely hard conditions to trade. It was balanced conditions, and I'll go into what that means here in just a second. But looking at the higher time frame, I had my zones marked out, right? So we have from all the way back here to this previous all-time high, right? We still have this low volume node valid, this low volume node right here, which extends all the way back here. But I like to keep it. Actually, yeah, we're gonna keep it like all the way back here. Yeah. So that's a low volume node, and I like to pair it with what it is. So this is a low volume node, and then it's also a 4-hour fair value gap right here, which we can see right here. 4-hour fair value gap, and usually if you plot it to the fair value gap, it'll align with the volume profile. At least that's ideal. And then up here, right, this is pretty new price action. So it used to be a 4-hour bullish gap that got inverted, created a new 4-hour gap, traded into it, displaced lower. So this area proved to be valid resistance, and yesterday it didn't hold, but we did create some 50-minute gaps off of it, and it's still low volume node, a low volume node as you can see back here. So yeah, and then this area up here also low volume, still holding. It was a pretty. I think it was the first time it got retested, and yeah. So we put in previous day's high. This is actually gotta correct that. Previous day's high. It's also a high inside of a 4-hour gap, making it an intermediate high and relative equal highs with this right here. So relative equal highs, and I'm saying relative and not equal because there's like a 1 tick difference between the two. I like to be as precise as possible when it comes to that kind of thing, and yeah. What else is there? I had marked out a previous day's low, and then a 4-hour intermediate low, so the low inside this 4-hour for value gap, and a 1-hour intermediate high, the high inside this 1-hour gap. Okay, so we now know what the volume profile looks like and what our high time frame confluences are telling us. So coming into pre-market, right? This looks choppy, right? It looks choppy, and the reason I'm saying that is because from market open or market reopen, right? You can box this up like this. Like, sure, you could see it as London manipulated, right? When we're recovering, yeah, that's valid. But still, it doesn't look as clear. One thing I will notice is you could have taken a pre-market long. We did sweep this 4-hour immediate low in London, and it just looked like London had clear manipulation. So you want to be bullish coming into the day, right? If you were up around maybe 7:30 or 8 a.m., if you caught this early, maybe you could have caught along here. You would obviously gotta get your confluences in order. So you would could have tried a scalp type of trade, maybe very short lived, or maybe to the upper view up end. And the reasoning behind this long would have been, we manipulated this 4-hour intermediate low, recovered, and it looked like we were holding above that upper view up end. And we got below it for a second there, and maybe retested there. So this was another entry they could have tried. Also valid. You could have done something like this. I feel like that would have been fine. Could have targeted this to get a better RR. Either way. But this is really early in the morning. I wasn't up at this time. Like I said, I overslept, so didn't even look at price action today. But yeah, just gonna be doing a recap of what happened today. I feel like both sides were valid. Longs were more favorable. I'll say that mostly because of the context, right? We're trading inside this low volume no fair value gap. You can see this support zone and all that. But yeah, coming into open, we just immediately displays lower. So this is the 5-minute time frame. Keep that in mind. And you're like, okay, you know what? I want to see us take pretty stay slow. And funny enough, we end up making equal lows or relative equal lows with it. After you see this displacement, You can probably throw in your New York VWAP, which I believe is actually here. I believe it is here. Yeah, it is here. You can barely see it because it is the 5 minute. But yeah, so we created that gap. So maybe we're paying attention to that. Created a bearish fair value gap. Didn't quite have a sweep of liquidity, but we did get above that upper VWAP end, then got below it, and then open just displays through the overnight VWAP. So maybe you want to look at the 3 minute, see what we're doing there. Maybe you took something off the candle closure. Maybe you took this inversion, right? Maybe you had this kind of stop, and then you were just targeting previous day's low for 72175. So maybe this was your trade. We'll see how it plays out. I think it heads straight there. Yeah, you did not get tagged. If you had it like what, one tick above or 2 ticks above, maybe like a point above, right? And then you would have been fine. 1.5 hour, 3 micros, you would have been fine. But it is what it is. It's just rough. And another thing that would have helped you manage this position was looking at ES. Looking at ES. Let me see. Cool. Yeah. I believe previous day's low was somewhere around here, right here. You would have seen that this low was SMT'd in London, right? So you could have seen that happen, right? Maybe that would have helped you not target that. But yeah, that was pretty much it with that trade. So maybe you could have taken a short there. Maybe you wanted to be more patient, considering we were in this upper area. Maybe you wanted to see something a bit more clear, so we can clear that out. And yeah, you can just watch price action for a bit, see what we're doing. We barely wick that since it's SMT. You're like, okay, yeah, we don't want to sweep that. You can look at your CVD chart over here. Had CVD recover here. So maybe if you saw something in the order flow here, you could have entered along there. Maybe along here. Maybe stops at previous day's low, and I don't know, maybe you were targeting this, or maybe you were targeting market open highs. Maybe you would have, I think you would have stayed alive in here, but once you saw we were just consolidating, you could have, gone break even. Oh, never mind. Actually, got a break there. But yeah, it's just a weird type of price action. Because look at from 933 all the way to 1040, we're just consolidating. We're just boxed up. If you exclude that wick, it's just a freaking barcode. It's not good price action, at least in my opinion. So you could be expecting that, right? To just have a clear manipulation leg. Maybe you wanted to look at the volume profile for today's price action, so you would include session reopen up until maybe like 9:30, right? And then you could have been updating it as we go. Right here. So maybe what happened once we got below that value area low, so like we sustained above it. So you could have been favoring longs. Just try your best to long the lows. Ideally, you've gotten in somewhere in this wick, and yeah, I think I ended up getting decent delivery after this. Yeah, we got some delivery, and you could have targeted like London highs, right? You also have Asia highs up here, which both of them would have gotten hit. But then again, it just took a long time for this to unfold. Maybe you wanted to see price actually sustain above the upper VWAP band. So maybe here, right, you see us sustain that value area low. So right here is where you would maybe look for a long. Maybe you enter there, have your stop down here, and just target Asia highs up here for a 2-to-1. Maybe that was your entry. Maybe you wanted to wait for a wick like this to to like have a better RR. But yeah, overall, I think it just took a while for price to do what I wanted to do. Um, I wouldn't say it was the worst price action. I believe if you aligned your order flow confluences, right? If you looked at your overnight VWAP with the corresponding bands, and if you also, there we go. Um, so if you looked at that, if you just looked at your overnight VWAP, your volume profile, and you were just aware of your high time frame zones, I think you would have been fine. Um, Personally, I think I would have liked to be bullish if I did end up looking into this price action. But it's just weird price action, truly, because like maybe you wanted to wait for London manipulation, maybe us to manipulate London lows, maybe that, right? Um, yeah, you could have waited for that. You could have waited for London lows, resweep here. Um, so we swept London lows initially, right? We sweep London lows here. Then we do a resweep of that initial low, which doesn't get to previous day's low, but maybe that's your entry confirmation. Maybe you saw a lot of failed selling there. Maybe you saw CVD divergence at these lows. The CVD divergence chart isn't telling us much, so we're just gonna put that away. But yeah, I think longs were the move today. You just had to be really patient because we were just playing around between the lower VWAP band and the overnight VWAP. So yeah, I think what would have made me want to lean towards longs was the fact that we had these two stacked together. We also had that 1 hour intermediate high, which I don't think ended up getting hit. Let me just fast forward price action. Maybe actually exit replay mode, see if it actually ended up getting hit. Maybe. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll hit it now. But yeah, like I said, I think today's price action it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too shabby. But maybe if you were patient enough, right, you noticed that we swept London lows, failed to London low. So you can extend this out till 4 actually. But yeah, that's my thoughts on today's price action. I don't think it was the worst. I just think you had to be patient, had all your confluences in alignment. The one thing I will say that was kind of against this trade idea was the fact that the IB set its low second, but the IB has just been so bad recently in the sense that the initial rejection stat, which just indicates which side is more likely to break first, it has not been the greatest for like the past 2 months or something like that. But yeah, other than that, I believe that pretty much wraps up the recap for today's price action. If you took longs and banked, congrats. If you didn't, it's all good. Maybe we'll get better price action tomorrow. But yeah, I think at least per my strategy, these were Asia High, and London High. Cool. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be backtesting this style of trading without bookmap. See what we can get from it. Just look at high time from low volume nodes, overlapping them with fair value gaps, looking at sweeps of highs and lows, session highs and lows, previous days, highs and lows, previous weeks, highs and lows, previous months, highs and lows, those type of things, and go out from there. Play around with the VWAP, just focus on that type of stuff, because it looks pretty solid, but I want to really backtest it, see how much of an edge I have there. To kind of gauge these type of things where we, sweep London lows, break above the lower VWAP band, then reclaim. We had like a reclaim a bunch of times, but yeah, I believe that wraps up today's trade recap. And tomorrow, looking at our calendar, first day of the month, we have ADP NFP, so like the preemptive NFP, I guess, or something like that, but shouldn't be too impactful. We do have this at 10 a.m. ISM PMI, so be aware of your news your macro context for tomorrow. And yeah, tomorrow I would expect it to be a bit of a better price action. If not, then that's fine. We'll just try our best to perform, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.